It's out there. He pulled the curtain aside. The yard was empty. The figure had vanished. But before he closed the curtain, he whispered something that made my heart sink. It came earlier tonight. I stared at him. You've seen it? He nodded slowly. Then, in a voice barely louder than a whisper, he said, I've been seeing it for 3 days. My grandfather's words echoed in my mind. I've been seeing it for 3 days. I couldn't believe what I had just heard. You've seen it, I whispered. He nodded without looking at me. His face had gone pale. The first time was outside the barn, he said. I thought it was just a shadow. The second time, it was standing beside the old well. Tonight, he swallowed hard. Tonight, it was standing outside your window. I felt my stomach tighten. Why didn't you tell anyone? He gave me a tired smile. Because I already know what people will say. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. Every creak of the house made me jump. Every gust of wind sounded like footsteps circling outside. When morning finally came, my grandfather looked exhausted. He hadn't slept either. Over breakfast, my grandmother barely touched her food. She kept staring at my grandfather, as if she wanted to say something but couldn't. Finally, she whispered, You should go. My grandfather looked at her. I know. That afternoon, he packed a small bag. I'll stay with your uncle in the next town for a few days, he told us. Maybe if I leave the village. He never finished the sentence. Before sunset, he climbed into his old pickup truck and drove away. I watched until the truck disappeared around the bend. My grandmother stood silently beside me. She was crying. I turned to her. Do you think he'll be okay? She didn't answer. Instead, she quietly said, Go lock every door. That night, rain poured over the village. The wind howled through the trees like distant screams. Around 9 o'clock, the electricity went out. The entire village disappeared into darkness. My grandmother lit 3 candles and placed one beside each window. Why 3? I asked. She stared into the flames. Agnes says they hate light. Before I could ask who they were, a loud knock echoed through the house. Not on the front door, on the back door. 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock. Knock? Neither of us moved. The knocking came again. Slower this time. Louder. My grandmother grabbed my arm so tightly it hurt. Don't answer it, she whispered. I wasn't going to. Then a man's voice called from outside. Mary? It was my grandfather's voice. Exactly his voice. My grandmother's eyes widened with horror. Open the door, the voice pleaded. Please, it's cold. I looked toward the back door. It sounds like Grandpa. She shook her head violently. No. But what if it isn't him? The voice became desperate. Mary, please. Then came the sound of someone crying. The crying slowly turned into laughter. Deep, broken, wrong. The laughter continued for nearly a minute, before stopping as suddenly as it had begun. Silence returned. Neither of us moved until sunrise. The moment daylight broke, we opened the back door. No footprints, no muddy tracks, nothing. Only one thing lay on the porch. My grandfather's hat. The same old hat he had been wearing when he drove away. My grandmother collapsed to her knees. He never made it, she whispered. My heart began racing. What do you mean? She picked up the hat with trembling hands. It never lets people leave. The words sent a chill through my entire body. A few hours later, the village church bell rang. Once, twice, 3 times. The sound echoed across the valley. People began gathering outside. No one spoke. They simply stared toward the road leading into the village. A police car slowly rolled into the square. 2 officers stepped out. Their faces were grim. They had found my grandfather's truck abandoned on the mountain road, just 5 miles away. The driver's door was open. The engine was still running. But my grandfather was gone. There were no footprints leading away from the truck. No blood. No signs of a struggle. Only deep scratches covering every window, as though dozens of sharp fingernails had scraped across the glass. That evening, I couldn't bear it anymore. I left the house without telling my grandmother. I needed answers. I needed Agnes. The fog was already creeping through the village as I hurried toward her cottage. For the first time, I noticed every house had its curtains tightly closed. No lights shone through the windows. It felt as though the entire village was hiding. When I reached Agnes's house, the front door was already open. She was waiting for me. You've seen them now, she said before I could speak. I nodded. They took my grandfather. Agnes slowly closed her eyes. No, she whispered. They've only begun. She stood and walked toward an old wooden cabinet. From inside, she removed a faded leather journal tied with a black ribbon. She placed it in my hands. This belonged to my daughter. I carefully opened it. The pages were filled with childish handwriting and simple drawings. Most showed trees, birds, flowers. Then, near the end, the drawings changed. Every page showed the same thing. A tall black figure, standing behind people, watching them. One drawing made my blood run cold. It showed a little girl holding her mother's hand. Behind the mother stood the dark figure. Behind the little girl stood another one. I looked up. She could see them too? Agnes nodded. From the day she was born, I felt my hands begin to shake. Who are they? Agnes stared toward the dark forest outside her window. For a long moment, she remained silent. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. They're not here to take the dead. She looked directly into my eyes. They're here to choose the living. Agnes's words echoed through the room. They're not here to take the dead. They're here to choose the living. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I stared at her, hoping she would tell me it was all a joke. She didn't. Instead, she walked toward the window and slowly pulled the curtain aside. The village was hidden beneath a blanket of thick fog. Nothing moved. Nothing made a sound. Then she pointed toward the church at the center of the village. Do you see it? At first, I saw nothing. Then my eyes adjusted. Standing in front of the church was a tall, black figure. Completely still. Its body looked almost human, but its arms hung unnaturally long, reaching almost to the ground. It had no face, only darkness. As I watched, another figure stepped out of the fog. Then another. Then another. Within seconds, I counted nearly 20 of them. They weren't wandering. They weren't hunting. They were simply waiting. My mouth went dry. Why are they just standing there? Agnes answered without taking her eyes off the window. They're waiting for nightfall. A knot formed in my stomach. What happens at night? She finally turned toward me. They come closer. Lightning flashed across the sky. For the briefest moment, every figure disappeared. When the darkness returned, they had moved. Not much, only a few feet. But they were closer than before. I stumbled backward. They moved. Agnes nodded. They always do. She closed the curtains immediately. Never watch them for too long. Why? They notice. Those two words terrified me more than anything else she had said. They notice? She looked straight into my eyes. The moment you realize they're looking at you, they realize you can see them. Silence filled the room. Then Agnes walked toward an old wooden chest in the corner. From inside, she removed a faded map of the village. Red circles had been drawn around several houses. These are every home where someone disappeared. I looked closer. Almost every family in the village had been marked. Some circles dated back 50 years. Others were fresh. Then, I noticed something. Every disappearance had happened on the same night of the year. I looked up. Tonight, Agnes slowly nodded. Tonight is the anniversary. The anniversary of what? Her face darkened. The night they first came. My heartbeat quickened. You mean this has been happening for years? For over a century? She told me that long before the village existed, travelers avoided this valley. They claimed strange figures wandered through the fog after sunset. People who followed them were never seen again. When settlers finally built the village, the disappearances continued, generation after generation. No one ever escaped. No one ever understood why. The only person who could see the figures before they struck was Agnes. But why you? I asked. She looked at the old journal in my hands. Because my daughter survived. I frowned. I thought she disappeared. Agnes closed her eyes. That's what everyone believes. A tear rolled down her wrinkled cheek. The truth is much worse. Before she could explain, a loud bell rang outside. The church bell. Once, twice, 3 times. Agnes rushed to the window. No. She pulled back the curtain. The village square was empty. Every door was shut. Every window was dark. Then I saw them. The black figures were no longer standing near the church. They were walking through the streets. Slowly, silently, stopping in front of different houses. One by one. Choosing. My breathing became uneven. Then one of them suddenly stopped. It slowly turned its head. Toward Agnes's house. Toward us. Even without a face, I knew it was staring directly at me. Agnes grabbed my arm so hard it hurt. We have to leave. Where? The old chapel in the forest. Why there? It's the only place they cannot enter. Without another word, she threw a lantern into my hands and opened the back door. The forest behind her house was swallowed by darkness. Rain began falling. Heavy, cold. We ran. Branches clawed at our clothes as we pushed deeper into the woods. Behind us, I heard something moving through the trees. Not running. Walking. Slowly, confidently, as though it already knew it would catch us. I glanced over my shoulder. The lantern's light barely reached the path, but beyond its glow, dozens of tall shadows drifted silently between the trees, keeping pace with us, never getting closer, never falling behind, just watching. Agnes suddenly stopped. She pointed ahead. An ancient stone chapel stood in the middle of the forest. Its roof had partially collapsed, and vines covered the walls. The wooden door hung crooked on rusted hinges. We hurried inside. The moment Agnes shut the door, every sound outside stopped. No rain, no wind, no footsteps. Only silence. She lit several old candles scattered around the chapel. Their weak light revealed faded paintings covering the walls. Every painting showed the same horrifying scene: villagers kneeling, while enormous shadow-like figures stood behind them. At the center of the chapel was a cracked stone altar. Carved into it were 6 words: "Do not let them learn your name." I stared at the message in confusion. Then my blood turned to ice. Outside the chapel, something spoke. Not loudly, not angrily, softly, patiently, in a voice that sounded exactly like my mother's. "Daniel?" Then another voice. My grandfather's. "We found you." Then another. Agnes's daughter. Crying. "Please open the door." Agnes covered my mouth before I could answer. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, "They finally found us." Agnes held her finger against her lips, warning me not to make a sound. Outside, the voices continued. They sounded so real. My grandfather called my name exactly the way he always had. "Daniel, it's me. Open the door." Then I heard my grandmother crying. "Please, they're hurting us." Every instinct told me to run outside. But Agnes whispered, "They're lying. Whatever you hear, do not answer them." The voices stopped. For a moment, the forest became completely silent. Then something heavy began circling the chapel. Slow, deliberate. Each footstep shook the old wooden floor beneath us. Thump, thump, thump. The candles flickered violently. A freezing wind swept through the cracks in the walls. Then, without warning, every candle went out. Darkness swallowed the room. I could barely breathe. I heard Agnes praying under her breath. Suddenly, 2 glowing white eyes appeared outside one of the broken windows. Then another pair, and another. Within seconds, dozens of glowing eyes surrounded the chapel, watching us, waiting. A long black hand slowly slid through a crack in the wall. Its fingers were impossibly thin and far too long. It searched the floor like a spider hunting its prey. I stepped backward. My foot scraped against the stone floor. The hand stopped moving. Then it pointed directly at me. Outside, every voice spoke at once. "We know you're here." The chapel shook violently. Dust rained from the ceiling. Old stones cracked apart. Agnes grabbed my arm. "They've chosen you. What do I do?" She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "You leave." "What about you?" She smiled sadly. My time was many years ago. Before I could stop her, Agnes walked toward the chapel door. She looked back one final time. "Listen carefully, Daniel. They cannot take what is willingly given." I didn't understand what she meant. Then she unlocked the door. The moment it opened, an icy wind rushed inside. The shadows waiting outside turned toward her. For the first time, I saw them clearly. They weren't people. They were impossibly tall, covered in darkness that seemed to move like smoke. Their faces were empty, except for 2 pale eyes glowing deep within the blackness. They surrounded Agnes without making a sound. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She simply looked at me. Live a life worth remembering. Then the darkness swallowed her. The chapel door slammed shut by itself. The voices vanished. The forest became silent once again. When dawn arrived, I stepped outside. There was no sign of Agnes. No footprints. No shadows. Only her old walking stick lying in the wet grass. The villagers searched for her for days. Some believed she had wandered into the forest. Others claimed she had finally gone mad. I knew the truth. She had saved me. Before leaving the village, my grandmother handed me a small envelope. "It belonged to Agnes," she whispered. "She wanted you to have it." Inside was a faded photograph. It showed Agnes standing beside her husband and daughter many years earlier. At first, it looked ordinary. Then I noticed something. Standing behind every member of her family was the same dark figure. Even behind Agnes herself. On the back of the photograph, she had written one final message. "They have always been with us. Most people simply never notice them." I left the village that same day and never returned. Years passed. I built a new life in the city. Eventually, I convinced myself it was all a terrible nightmare. Until last week, I was riding the subway home after work when a little girl sitting across from me looked directly into my eyes. She couldn't have been older than 8. She smiled nervously and asked, "Mister, who's the tall man standing behind you?" My heart stopped. Slowly, very slowly. I turned around. No one was there. When I faced the little girl again, she was still staring over my shoulder. Her smile had disappeared. In a trembling voice, she whispered, "He's smiling now." The train suddenly went dark as it entered a tunnel. For just a few seconds, every light went out. When they came back on, the little girl was gone. No one else on the train seemed to notice. I searched every carriage. She had vanished without a trace. That night, I looked into my bathroom mirror. Standing behind me was the same towering shadow Agnes had warned me about all those years ago. It wasn't as far away as before. It was close enough that I could feel its cold breath on the back of my neck. And for the first time, It slowly raised one hand and rested it on my shoulder. If you're listening to this story, I have only one piece of advice. If someone ever tells you they can see something standing behind you, don't ask them what it looks like, because the moment you know it's there, it knows that you know, and from that moment on, it never leaves.